Shalom and good day. This is Tehillim 29 back again, or T29 back again for a solicitation station. Apologies for this one running late because I've had some busy things happening around at home and family and whatever else. And not only that, apart from that, working on getting some hardware fixed up, and there might be a change in how I do my reviewing schedule. So until then, let's move directly into this solicitation station. I think we're up to episode 44 for this. Now I am planning on doing another one after this one, and I'm hoping this one will probably go up on Wednesday for this week. So if you see this video on Wednesday, you will know that I managed to get it up on time. And the other one I'm hoping to get up by maybe for Friday, Saturday. So as you can see here, I have 3 previews. We've got the DC Connect, we've got the Marvel one, and of course we happen to have an Image one. So what I might do first is I'll start on the Marvel one, then we'll move on to the Image and finish off with the DC Connect. So I know that this is a little bit late to get done, but at least it's done, or at least I'm moving on to it. So as you can see here, we've got the character of the character known as the Imperial, which looks to be working on a particular cover. I think it's the Atom or someone like that, and it's certainly an interesting cover. So let's see what they've got planned for the month that this is meant to come out for. So we're looking June, slowly into July. Moving into the first page, or the first couple of pages, we've got Marvel Knights to return, along with the Fantastic Four, a what-if version, of course. The Godzilla versus the Avengers, this I'll definitely be collecting, as I think it's probably about the only interesting thing right now that I'm actually following through Marvel. A little bit more so than the Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu series. Of course, we move into the Imperial, and I've no doubt there will be a lot I'll be passing on in relation to what is being shown here. Bit of a brief look inside, and of course what we've got here, the Marvel Knights. Doesn't look overly interesting. Of course, we move into Spider-Girl. Of course, do we have Dan Slott working on it? No, we don't. Thunderbolts, not even in my list. Not interested. Definitely not interested. Still not bloody interested. Not really interested. I imagine it's going to be like this for a while, so still not interested. Same again. And again. Doom Academy, I wouldn't mind getting the trade paperback to the series. That's about the only thing. Fantastic Zero, I might pass. Things in relation to the Marvel Rivals game, I might end up giving it a pass. Not much of interest here. Again, not much of interest. Same again, and again, and again. About the only thing I might want to get would be the Ultimate Spider-Man trade paperback. That's about the only thing. Not much here. Same again. And of course again. And again. I think I'd rather be at the end of this already. Not really collecting Amazing Spider-Man right now. Of course there's Spider-Boy. I'll probably be getting the next trade to that. Make Miles Morales again. And not Spider-Man. Oh, something that might actually be worth picking up. Some facsimile editions. Again, nothing of interest. Same again. And again. And Laura Kinney is not Wolverine. Nothing of interest. Nothing of interest. Again, nothing of interest. Can we just get to the Masterclass and the Epic Collections? Nothing there. Same again, and again, and again, and again. Stay away from Disney shit wars. Because David Fraudloni ruins everything. More trash. Not much interesting here as we are starting to move into the collected areas. Not much here. Nothing of interest right now. Same again. Well, it's nice to see the older X-Men stuff. Remember, it is not Legends. It is the expanded universe. The original expanded universe. If you believe Disney and call it Legends, you're a Disney show. Nothing of interest here. Same again. Again, nothing of interest. Looks like we're starting to move into the area of the Epic Collections. Of course, the main collections. Not much of interest here. Same again. And same again. Finally, slowly starting to move into what would be the Epic Collections. Fantastic Four would definitely be one of my picks. Not much there. Moving to slightly newer stuff. Not much of interest. Not much of interest. Now we move into the area of the posters. Now, if I were to pick any of these posters, which poster would I pick out of them? We've got to Bring On the Bad Guys, the Emma Frost, Spider-Girl, and the Uncanny X-Men. I'd probably pick the Uncanny X-Men one. Alright, now it's time to move into Image and their previews one. So as we move into the Image, we get a bit of a introduction of something called Spectators. What is it about? We'll probably find out as we look in there. Of course, we are starting to move into the first couple of things, from Bloodletter to Chichinko, and whatever else is there. Oh, no, it's Gehenna, Naked Aggression, My Pass. Of course, we have Lazarus, news from the Fallout. Not much of interest presently. Assorted Crisis Events, I am presently reading through that right now, and it's actually quite interesting what I've been reading through with the first two issues. I wonder how the story might end up ending towards the end, or by the time it sort of like finishes it, what would be its first trade paperback arc. Not much of interest here. Not much of interest here. We've got the Department of Truth, which I've actually dropped the series. Maybe the Deadly Tales of Gunslinger Spawn of the Spawn universe. I'd probably consider getting a trade to that. Not much here. Of course, there's Geiger, more Gunslinger Spawn. King Spawn, to which I'm still following. Monkey Meat by Junie Barr. I might maybe consider picking up the trade for that. Of course, we've got Medieval Spawns, which I've actually checked out the first two, which I'll be checking out the first two issues. I hope I enjoy the second, because that will be the deciding factor to which I pick up the last two issues. Not much here. Rat City, I wouldn't mind collecting more trades in relation to Rat City. Of course, Redcoat, I can highly recommend that. Rogue Sun, recently it's had some alright-ish stories, but they do need to pick up. Of course, we've got some Sam and Twitch there, which I might work on getting maybe some of the new trades in relation to the series. Some more Tin Can Society, to which I might definitely consider picking up the trade for that. Moving into some more, not much there, not much here. I'm surprised that they haven't maybe put in Ghost Machine in here, or a lot more Ghost Machine related stuff, content in here, which I think would probably help get more people checking out their previews. Of course, we have Darwin Cook's The Spirit Connoisseur Collection, which I would probably be interested in that. We've got some DC classics, some compendiums, can't knock them back. Not much here. Sam and Twitch, the Brian Michael Bendis. I'll say one thing, it's actually definitely worth to pick up the Brian Michael Bendis Sam and Twitch. if it's one thing I have learned about Brian Michael Bendis, is that he can actually do some really good independent stories. Sometimes when he's on mainstream, he can write some absolute crap. The Spawn manga, added to my list. Nothing of interest there. Oh, all except maybe the complete Witchblade. But I'd be getting it in softcover trade if I were to pick any. Some more Invincible related stuff. I am going to have to find some time to actually pick up the omnibuses in relation to the series, preferably softcover. And that is all from there. So now it's time to move into the DC Connect. DC, you had me at Monsterverse and the return of Godzilla vs. Kong and the Justice League. So I am definitely wanting to check this series out. Of course, we move into the Batman All-In and some of the things that are coming out for this month. Of course, the Justice League vs. Godzilla, definitely on my list. Superman Unlimited, definitely will be checking out the series, maybe the first couple of issues. Of course, there's Superman, definitely not touching Wonder Woman. The Trinity one, I might give it a pass, because it looks like it's just a collection. Pass on these. About the only thing I might end up collecting, seeing how things will go on the third issue, could be the Absolute Flash. Not interested in Absolute Martian Manhunter, let alone Green Lantern. Detective Comics in my list. Justice League Unlimited might still be in my list. We'll see what happens. Of course, the new history of the DCU. Of course, we return to Action Comics, which is in my list. And Aquaman, which I think still be in my list. Nothing really of interest here, all except maybe Nightwing, which should still remain in my list. The Flash, I am seriously thinking of dropping it. As for the rest, of course, we've got the Green Lantern Corps. Might still be in my list at the time. We'll see how things go. Not much here. Maybe Secret 6. We'll see how I go with the next issue. World's Finest, still on the list, as it reaches a bit of a milestone with Mark Waid. Not much else left here. The Robin and Batman, Jason Todd, definitely in my list, because I actually enjoyed the first one. And of course, we still have Batman and Robin, still in my list. Nothing really here in my list. The DC Pride might automatically be added to my list. We'll see what happens when that comes out. But no doubt, if it does turn out to be in my list for this year, it'll be going in the Fool's Gold again. Not much here. Not much. About the only thing that should still in my list out of this is the DC Sonic the Hedgehog. Can't knock back the facsimile editions, whatever one you choose to pick. Of course, we got a nice celebration of some of the variants, which I actually quite like, to be honest. Some absolute editions, some collected editions, which I think might be worth to pick up. Nothing really of interest here, but if it's one thing I can tell you about this Robin series, it feels more like a bit of an Elseworlds type story, and it's almost as if Damian Wayne Robin was the second Robin in the story, and not sort of like Jason Todd and whoever else. More collected editions, about the only ones of these that I'd probably want to get. Might not be any of them. Nothing of interest here. The New Frontier by Darwin Cook is about the only thing of interest there. Nothing there I can really see of interest. Maybe the Chuck Dixon series, that would probably be one thing I'd pick. Of course, the Terrifics collection. What we really need is a New Age of Heroes compendium, or at least omnibus. That needs to be available because of the heroes that came out for the DC Metal and the DC Dark Knight's Death Metal. I think that is something that would really be worth grabbing. And of course, we have the Dan Jurgens Omnibus Volume 1, which is also added on my list. And I'm looking forward to collecting it. And I hope I'm still around doing videos and whatever to show the day I do collect it. Well, thanks for watching this solicitation station. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.